Good morning, good morning, good morning. So, I should be joined here momentarily by Dr. Tachi. Dominick is out for the week. So, I am flying solo in the seat here. Here we go. Dr. Tachi is in the live stream. All right. Now, let's go ahead and hop in. Hey! Don't forget to join the, you got to join the Clubhouse room separately as well. Oh, I can't hear you.
Should I leave the sound off there, or is it okay to have both?
Usually what I do is I'll mute your mic on this side,
Okay.
and then you go ahead and hop into the Clubhouse room. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, it
So I'll
wasn't
mute
letting
you.
me in. I'm so sorry.
No. It's all good. It's all good. Technical things happen. It's I know it's not the platform you use all the time.
Yeah, that's probably what it was.
So there's always a bit of a learning curve. So yeah, if you go ahead, are you using Club Deck or are you using your phone?
No, I'm using an iPad.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. There we are. And now mute your speakers on that side. Yeah.
Okay, let me.
All right, here we go. All right, cool. So we're getting things up and running, guys. It's there we are. And I think if you got your once you get your AirPods in there or your headphones, whatever brand you're using, I don't mean to assume. Whatever brand you're using, when you get those in, you should be good to go. I see Vaughn popping in. I'm going to bring Vaughn up. There we go. Bring Vaughn up on stage. I'm going to go ahead and try to ping some folks in here. And we'll get going. So, Dr. Tachi, if you got your headphones in, you can go ahead and take yourself off mute. We should be able to go ahead and have a chat. Yeah, take yourself off mute in the Clubhouse room. Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Are you hearing echo?
Nope.
Oh, okay. I am, but I'm good.
I mean, it sounds a little hollow. I don't know. Is it the correct connection on or is it using your headphones, or is it using sometimes, I don't know. You're on an iPad though, you said, right? Yeah, no, that mic isn't gonna, because it's only gonna pick up your audio is gonna come through Clubhouse into the live stream.
Yeah, it sounds hollow on the iPad because I'm in a huge room. But let me move it closer to me. Does this sound a little better?
Absolutely.
Okay, there we go.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and just keep pinging some folks in here. We'll get the conversation going. How's your week been so far, Dr. Tachi?
It has been fantastic.
Nice.
How about yours?
Pretty good. Things have been really crazy busy, and this week has been, the pace, while I'm still busy, has been slightly more relaxed. So that's always nice. Although my last week was a very busy week work-wise, but a lighter week Ironman training-wise. And so now this week is a little lighter work-wise, but busier training-wise. So I did about a 42-minute swim this morning, and then I have a bike ride to do after this room. Yeah. So.
Wow. let's talk about the fact that I can't even swim. So good for you.
No, no, never learned, huh?
I did learn. I forgot. I learned when I was like 3 at the Y.
And you forgot?
Yeah, it's not something people are like, oh, it's like riding a bike. No,
You're like, "Nuh-uh."
not the bikes I use anyway.
So, yeah, I mean, it's never too late to get started though either. I mean,
True.
it's one of those things, and there are, um, there are masters swim programs available. Um, and at a lot of like YMCA's and public pools, and some of them are at like high schools and stuff like that. My Becky, my girlfriend, um uh she never really had like a good swimming foundation growing up, and so
Mm,
she knew how to swim but didn't technically, like, wasn't proficient with swimming. And
okay.
so she went and got involved in a master's swim program, and like learned how to swim more, properly. Put it that way, I guess. But learned some technique, and got much better at swimming just from being a part of that master's program. So there's lots of opportunities if you're interested.
Oh, I am. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so yeah, so let's get things going. The last couple of weeks, sort of what Dom and I have been trying to do, and I think you and I are a good sort of team to keep this going.
Yeah.
Is we've just been trying to just give actionable things that people can do, and I'm curious if anybody. I know Jess. In fact, I'm gonna put the spotlight on Jess here real quick. Last week I kind of threw that challenge out to the room, and said I want everybody to at some point today put themselves on camera and just talk about how it feels to be on camera, right? And I know Dominick did it. He posted his video. I posted mine. I said, you don't have to post it. I just want you to do it. So I'm curious first, Dr. Tachi, if you did it, and then Jess posted on LinkedIn that she was going to do it, and I'm curious to see what she did. So first to you, Dr. Tachi, did you do that, or do you want to share how it feels to be on camera for you right now, if you didn't?
I'll do both. Yes, I did do it, but I haven't posted it yet. I'm the type of person that tends to batch record a lot of things, and then stuff gets in the way, and I never get a chance to post it. But how it feels to be on camera, this is what I love to do. I have always, for some reason, loved to have an audience. So this is within my wheelhouse. And plus, using live streaming where you're not necessarily seeing everyone, it makes it feel like you're having a conversation with people as opposed to giving a TED talk, if that makes sense.
I gotcha. I gotcha. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense. There we go. Somehow I had apparently muted, unmuted, remuted. Anyway, yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I totally gotcha.
Yeah.
So, how about you, Jess? Did you do that video the other day when you posted on LinkedIn on Dom's post that you were going to do it? Did you actually go
I
ahead and film it?
did. Oh my God, Tom, I sure did. Wow. So I
That's
haven't
awesome.
posted it either. I haven't posted it either. Just because I've gotten, and it's just been a very busy but positive and beautiful, week. But that was just, I think, wow. I will say something. I've always been my worst critic, but it was actually more of a positive thing, and I was actually expecting it to be the opposite, and it wasn't. And it just really opened my eyes to a lot of different things. I was thinking of things Dr. Tachi said, things that Charlie would say about your shoes, thinking of just all kinds of how do you articulate yourself, how's your posture. So I was like really psychoanalyzing, but also like just literally analyzing everything. And then I was like, at the end, when I, watched it probably for the fourth time, I was just like, but that is who I am, even with the uhs and the stumbles and so it was Tom challenge, ultimately the best and accepted.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm really glad that you found value in doing that, because that's the goal, right? Like, the idea behind that challenge was really, there's a lot of people that come in, or there's a lot of people that put themselves on video that have a really hard time um, feeling comfortable doing it, right? And like I said in my video when I posted it, it's I'm self-conscious every time I'm on camera. I'm self-conscious right now. I think a lot of people are. You look at yourself, you nitpick, I just stumbled a couple of times on, and believe me, I was thinking about that like floats around in the back of my head as I stumble a little bit, right? So like, I am absolutely self-conscious every single time a camera is pointed at me. The trick is that I've done it so much that I've gotten comfortable being uncomfortable, right? So that was the goal, and it sounds like you're kind of moving in that same direction, Jess, that it's about accepting being uncomfortable. It's about accepting pushing yourself and challenging yourself, and taking yourself out of your comfort zone in order to grow, right? And so yeah, I mean, 100%. I'm so glad to hear that you found value in it, that you found it to be a positive experience overall. That was the goal. So yeah, Vaughn, I think you were in the room last week also. Did you accept my challenge? And if so, are you happy to talk about it here?
You know what? I must have came in after or some of the challenge. I don't remember the challenge actually, and obviously I didn't take it. I don't remember the challenge, so I wish I did. It sounds like it would have been a great involvement. I have to hear the replay or something.
Well, it's never too late. So basically, the challenge is very, very simple, and it's never too late to do it. So basically, I just challenged everybody in the room. I posted my video online on all of my channels, but the point was for everybody in the room, you don't have to do that. You didn't have to post it online. I did. I chose to. But the challenge was really just point a camera at yourself and talk about how it feels to be on camera, how having a camera pointed at you makes you feel. And what I said in my video was that I'm self-conscious every single time a camera is pointed at me. I'm live streaming right now. I'm self-conscious right now. The trick is that I've done it so many times that it doesn't bother me anymore, because I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. Right. So that's what I did. And that's if you choose to, if you'd like to, go ahead and do that at some point. I think, Jess found it instructive and helpful. I know Dominick found it instructive and helpful. And it was really, it was there were kind of two points to it, right? One was to get you to just talk about how it feels to be on camera, right? Because it's something that we internalize, but we never really express outwardly. And the other side of it too was to just record a quick video, a minute or so, without editing it, right? To just record it, don't edit it, just watch it back, listen to yourself, learn from the experience, rather than overthinking everything. And that was something that Dominick said he struggles with. Is he'll record a video and it'll be a 2-minute video, but he spends 3 hours editing it because he's nitpicking every little detail. He does 47 takes. And my point is that nobody expects you to be perfect, especially when you're doing a quick, like, on the fly, walking with your camera kind of video. And you're better off just being authentic and just being yourself, right? And being relatable. So yeah, so that was the challenge, Vaughn. So if you'd like to, feel free to do that today. I think it can be instructive and helpful. Jess, did you have something you wanted to add there?
Oh, my bad. I'm so sorry. No, I just was listening. I didn't even know I was unmuted. I apologize.
Oh, no. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. We're casual here. No worries. No worries. Dr. Tachi, what do you think? Is that something that you see with people a lot, is that they get consumed with perfectionism and they don't really kind of let their audience see their authentic selves?
Yes, I am I muted? Sorry.
You're good.
Can you hear me?
You're good.
Oh, okay, great. So I think the issue is that people are in this quest for perfection because society has made it important that you be perfect. Practice makes perfect, right? Um, there's this quest for perfection in everything. And of course, that's going to filter in what you do with video and your presence on camera. But there's no such thing as perfection. There's what's perfect for you, which is going to be different for what's perfect for someone else. I think you should aim to get your message out in the best way possible to the best of your ability. The measure of that is whether or not people are accepting your message. For example, if you're live streaming like now, people are putting messages. Yes, that's true because years ago I XYZ. When you see head nodding, for example, if you can see your audience, when you see positive comments, when you see affirmative comments, that lets you know that your message is being accepted and received. And even if it's not, even if there is counter argument to what you're saying, people are listening. So you're getting conversation started. So I think that's the most important thing, not making sure you have XYZ camera, XYZ mic, making sure that your message is crafted in this outline. That's not the most important thing. You could work up to the other technical things. The main thing is getting your message out and heard and received. My 2 cents or 5 cents.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. So maybe that's the question we should use to kind of spur the conversation this week is what do you see as the most important thing? And I think it can either come from personal experience, from what people do with their own content creation and their own building an audience around their own brand, or what they see other people do, what they find themselves drawn towards and subscribing to and following. But what do you think the most important thing is in growing an audience and building a community? Right? What's the most important thing? Is it authenticity? Is it is it technical competency? Is it whatever the case may be? So maybe that's what do you think? Is that a good question for us to kind of spur the conversation?
I think that's an excellent question to spur the conversation. Where should we start?
Cool. Well, let's go. Let's welcome Julie came in the room. Our favorite, the Pied Piper of Clubhouse is here in the room. So, Julie, what do you think is the most important aspect of building an audience or building a community around either your content or your brand? What do you think is the most important thing people can focus on in doing that?
That's a great question, Tom. Great question, and Dr. Tachi, great kind of spur on of this conversation. I think for me, what I find is the most important all around in all aspects is engagement and engaging with your audience and creating those relationships through engagement. So that would be my answer. I'd love to know your thoughts.
So when you say engagement, Julie, are you talking about like follow through with your audience? So like if
Yeah.
you okay.
Just one of the things, like how many people, I can't tell you, like, I'm not.
Oh, we lost your sound there for a second. So if I'm getting your oh, there you are, you're back. So what were you saying?
Worst audio in all the world, at least on Clubhouse. It's like it's about committing to the people and building those relationships. And so many times making appointments, you get blown off, you're just sitting there wasting your time. But immediately how committed and engaged the person you're talking to is when they do care and they deliver more than you expect.
I agree with that. I think one of the things that I see all the time, and I see a lot of people talk about in terms of the value in building a community is engaging with every comment, replying to every comment, engaging with every share of your content, actually showing that you're invested in building the community, right? I think too often, and it's one of the reasons why I hate the word follower, right? When it comes to social media, because it really sends the wrong message. I don't even like that Clubhouse uses it, right? I think it sends completely the wrong message. At the end of the day, I'm not here for people to like follow me, right? Like I don't want a bunch of I don't want a horde of people behind me just eating up everything that comes out of my mouth. I want people to engage with me. I want people to challenge me. I want people to question me. I want to build a community so that I can grow and other people in that community can grow so that we can create something good together, right? Not so people can just listen to what I have to say, right? So Dr. Tachi, what do you think about that? Is that like the value of replying to every comment, engaging with every share of your content, really showing people that you are invested in the community building?
Absolutely, because otherwise they can just watch TV, right? No disrespect to TV. I'm a TV person as well. But the thing about television that is different from live streaming or video, like on YouTube, and then replying back, is that there is real time or almost instantaneous ability to answer people back. That's what they come there for, because they have that firsthand connection, or can form that firsthand connection from you, unlike what you could do on television. You can watch your favorite television show and you can talk to the TV all you like. Nobody will ever talk back. You may even say something to them on social media, but they may not see it for weeks and weeks later, if at all, or just may not answer. So remember and keep in mind that people are coming to you for live stream and recorded video with the ability to answer underneath. They're coming there to be heard. And so I think you owe them that, the ability to be heard. I think it's critically important to, if you're live streaming, welcome people in when they're coming, acknowledge their comment. Granted, if you have a lot of people, you're not going to be able to acknowledge every single comment, but acknowledge that. I always, when people come in to my live streams and say, you know what, if I missed your comment, I'm sorry. There's so many comments coming in. Just make sure if there's something you really want me to see, put it in there again, or put it in the chat box. Like if I'm on Instagram, put it in the question box, and I'll make sure I get to it. So I think it's critically important to acknowledge that you have an audience, because the only reason you have a platform is because you have an audience. So acknowledge them, answer them back. I release them up.
Perfect. Thanks, Dr. Tachi. And I'm going to put you on the spot here in a second too, and we'll run down and see what everybody else thinks here. But we got a question from my friend Chris Fraze on Facebook, and he asked if we can offer some advice about connecting with an audience when you're putting out an uncomfortable or unpopular message, right? And so, to give some context here, Chris and I have known each other for years. He's a dog trainer, dog behavior specialist, right? He does a couple of different things. He does, kind of the standard, what people would think of as like obedience training for dogs and things like that. But then he also does some specialty training with dogs, and he specifically does a lot of rehabilitation with dogs who have developed aggressive behaviors for a variety of reasons, right? And I'm not an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination, but a little bit of Chris's knowledge has I've soaked up a little bit over the years. But he has some unpopular or uncomfortable truths about training dogs, which I happen to agree with, and those are that throwing handfuls of treats at a dog is not going to solve all your problems, right? So that's one of those things. He's trying to undo some of the damage that's been done to training and how people interact with dogs. And because at the end of the day, most of the time, owners are to blame for the bad behavior of their dogs, right? And Chris likes to say it's not the dog, it's you, right? You're the one that's created this bad behavior in your dog, and you're going to further that. So how do you recommend, or what do you recommend to somebody who's got an uncomfortable message like that, where basically he's calling people out essentially for messing up their dogs? What's your advice for connecting with an audience when you have a message that is hard for them to hear?
I think it's in your approach. If you come at them in a way where they will get defensive, they'll get defensive because it's as if you're blaming them. I think approaching them with respect and respecting that they may have a different viewpoint or different way of looking at it than you do is the way to do it. And you can do it by I totally understand your point of view. I get it. And not saying but I get your point of view. Looking at it from another perspective, what if we XYZ? So presenting alternatives to the point of view and acknowledging that their point of view is valid. Why? Because it's their point of view and they have it for a particular reason, whatever it is. So if you come in telling somebody that they're wrong straight away, that's the quickest way for them to shut down. Acknowledge their point of view, offer an alternative point of view, and then in your head know that you're not going to convert all people immediately, if at all. But people will respect the fact that you respect their point of view and came at them respectfully. Because sometimes it's easy to get loud, especially when people are getting loud back with you, but resist that because that is counter to what you want, which is people hearing and accepting your message. So that's what I would say. Come at them with respect.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Tachi. So let's go down to we haven't heard from Prof T yet. So Prof T, welcome to the room. So got a question from my friend Chris Fraze over on Facebook, and he wanted to know or was asking for advice on how to connect with an audience when your message is uncomfortable for them and or maybe an unpopular message, but something they need to hear. So Prof T, what are your thoughts on how to connect with an audience when you have an uncomfortable message for them?
That's a great question. And again, I like to stay in my lane, speaking from the psychological aspect of things. When we say a message that they need to hear, you really got to check yourself on that, because we don't know what people need to hear. And what we think people may need to hear may not be what people need to hear. I tend to go on the side of caution that when you're reaching a certain audience, they want to hear what you have to say. They will follow you anywhere. They will engage. There's an audience for everything. And when you're talking pets, I agree. There's no bad pets. There's no bad children. There's bad parenting and bad furry friend parenting. So with that said, I would say that you can't assume people need anything. And if you have a hard message, there is an audience for that, but you can't assume what people need to hear. Thank you. Prof T, over to you.
Thanks, Prof T. So yeah, I wonder then, I want to push back just a little bit on that idea that about assuming that someone needs to hear something. If somebody has a dog that is aggressive, right? So like in this particular context, right? If somebody has a dog that's aggressive, and the way that they are interacting with the dog is furthering that dog's aggressive behavior, I would argue they do need to hear that what they're doing is creating the problem, right? So how do you approach somebody when when that comes up? And Dr. Tachi, do you want to go ahead and add something there, and we'll throw it back to Prof T?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just wanted to add a quick story. the fact that, okay, so you all know I'm a professor, I'm assuming, maybe you don't, but I am also a professor. And I've taught like all generations. Like when I started teaching on the university level, I was only like maybe 2 years older than my oldest student. So we were like all the same generation. But the longer I teach, the farther the generations get away. And I see some differences in what students A, like what I did and students A did, and then what these students now did. In my opinion, I'm like, you all complain too damn much. But I have to also look at it from, see, the dog didn't like that. I have to I have to understand that they're coming from a different viewpoint, from a different generation, and their parents raised them differently. And I understand why their parents raised them differently. They didn't want them to have to go through all the things that we went through. Now, conversely, that has handicapped lower end of millennials, baby to millennials, and Gen Z in a way, in my opinion. But then it has also empowered them. In fact, if they don't take the rubbish that we used to take, they're like, oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm not coming to work today for 17 hours. And I respect them for that. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of there's a parenting thing that I see there that has had an effect, but I understand where that's coming from. And you kind of find that middle ground there. They need to hear the message, but is hearing that message one time going to be enough to change that behavior? Probably not. So there, in some cases, sometimes there needs to be a middle ground. So I wanted to give that example because it's kind of parenting and the dog training thing. Probably I shouldn't say that, but it's in a way kind of the same thing.
It's similar. It's related for sure. I think it's I agree that it's not the same, and I don't have kids. I have dogs. I know a lot of people that have both, and I 100% agree. And I know people who have kids who it drives them nuts when people are like, "Oh, I have dogs. I know what it's like." Right, and it's not the same thing. It's not at all the same thing. But there's some similarities. So I totally agree with that. So Prof T, curious to hear your thoughts there about like how do you approach somebody when it is sort of an intervention kind of situation. What are your thoughts there? Where you somebody may need to genuinely hear something that they're not going to like.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I came into the room a little bit later. So I do want to clarify before I follow up with my answer. Are we talking about just social media? Are we talking about being in person? Somebody's calling for your services. Someone's hired you. What's the backdrop?
I mean, I think it's honestly, I was going to say a combination of both because I think both apply, and I'm curious to hear your answers. But let's split them because I understand and I appreciate that they could be, very different responses. So let's say one side is an audience on social media, on your digital channels, and then, yeah, okay. So Chris just added in the chat that he's talking about podcasts, live stream videos, things like that. So how do you engage with an audience when you have an uncomfortable message, and the medium through which you're reaching them is podcasts, live videos, and stuff like that, when they need to hear something? And again, I'm pushing back on that, and feel free to tell me I'm totally wrong. I'm open to that, Prof T. So don't hold back.
Thank you. Yeah. So again, I'm going to have to kind of stand my ground on what we think people need to hear. Now, if somebody's hiring me, hey, I got a problem with my kids. And look, I've been in the mental health and wellness for almost 20 years. I've been counseling and coaching people in office, in person, in group settings. Here's what I know. If somebody doesn't want your help, they're not going to seek you out. If they are seeking you out, they may push back a little bit, and they will take it into consideration. Now, I'm going to just speak from my own personal opinion. When I see an animal being mistreated, or when I see a child being mistreated, anybody being mistreated, you know, Do I go in and insert myself into the middle of that? No, I don't. I don't have the authority to do that. So I think we have to be really careful when we try to assume what's going on with people. And I'm going to land my plane with this because I want to stay in my lane. One of my very first jobs was working as a drug and alcohol therapist. And I learned so much from my clients. And here's what they said: when the student is ready, the teacher will come. In other words, a lot of people who came through for the drug and alcohol counseling, some of them were court ordered, they were mandated, they just kept going back into the same routine. You had a small rate of success, although there was some, as opposed to those who were like, look, I'm screwing up. I don't know what I'm doing. My life is a mess. I lost my job. I lost my house. I lost my kids. I lost my dog. I lost my kitty cat. Help. I think that's where I want to land my plane. If someone wants your help. Now, when you're on a podcast, it's your show. Say whatever you want. There's the little button called delete or leave or go on to the next podcast or the next show. So stick with your message. Absolutely herald your message. Be an advocate. There's nothing worse than seeing a dog being treated as such where the dog is not able to emotionally grow as well as children. I feel like I'm talking too long and going around and around, but I want to stand firm on the fact that you can't help someone if they don't want to hear your message. But when you're doing social media podcasting, it's your show. You can say and do what you want, and your people will come who really want to hear what you have to say to change. Thanks. Prof T, back to you.
Thanks, Prof T. I appreciate that. So yeah, I mean, and I agree with you. I think if people aren't ready to listen, they're not going to listen, right? One of the things that I was just thinking about was framing, right? So how you present the information, I think, is really important, and how you present the message. And one of the things that I would always look to do, or encourage somebody to look to do when you're trying to deliver an uncomfortable truth, right, or an uncomfortable or potentially unpopular opinion, is to create the opportunity for the audience to see themselves in the situation that leads to that uncomfortable truth or that opinion, right? So I like to use analogies. That's just the way, that's part of my style of communication, is I use analogies all the time, right? So when I'm explaining something, a concept, to somebody to help them understand it or wrap their head around it, I say, have you ever been in a situation like X, Y, and Z, right? And I pick situations that are very common for people, right? And so they'll say, yeah, I've had that happen. I say, okay, so when that happens, then this happens, right? And then I'll kind of take them down a path that leads them to that uncomfortable truth. And because I've gotten them to associate themselves with, or associate past experiences, right, and personal experiences with that journey along the way, they can see themselves and see how they've gotten to that uncomfortable position or that unpopular opinion. And they can see themselves in that situation. And so it helps with that communication. So that's just something that I try to do. Yeah, I mean, that's my methodology. Curious to hear what anybody else says. How do you connect with an audience? How do you connect with a community when you have an uncomfortable message or an uncomfortable truth to share with them? We'll welcome Sophie to the stage. I don't think we haven't met you yet, Sophie. So feel free to introduce yourself, and would love to hear your thoughts on how you connect with an audience with an unpopular or uncomfortable truth.
Yeah, hi. So I'm an audiobook narrator, so I am by no means um, a professional in the sense of psychology of how people think. But I will say, if you're the idea of connecting with an audience with something that is uncomfortable, my question is the goal to take that person, change their mind, and now have them agree with you, or to make them feel at ease? Because I feel like those are two different end games. And I kind of agree in the sense that there's so much information out there about how incredibly difficult it is to have your mind be changed and be changed by someone else. Um, there's actually a fabulous number of years ago, a great This American Life episode called "The Rarity of Changing Your Mind," and I recommend it's a great listen. Um, but I do think that what is the goal? Is the goal to have someone agree with you, or to put them more at ease? Because I think those are two very different things. If I'm on my social media, I think the better focus for me personally, rather than climbing up that hill of making someone who doesn't agree with me or who's uncomfortable with my point of view, working at them and trying to get them to come around. I think I agree. I think this is what Professor T was saying, is I would rather focus on the community I already have, and I think sort of building my authentic self with on the social media, because that is what has brought them there to begin with. Um, I think, making people comfortable. You brought up an interesting point of sort of using analogies, putting people in different scenarios. A really good master at this. And I think, just completely take out the context of how you feel about this person, is Secretary Pete Buttigieg. He's a master debater at this, and he does a lot of this where he will be in a room with people who fervently disagree with him, and he finds smaller links where they do agree. And by the end of it, I'm not going to say that he's converted them over, but they now kind of see a little bit more of his point of view. However, I think that more often you're going to have to repeat that process several times over to win someone over to your line of thinking, because again, I don't think people's minds are so easily changed. I think that if we're talking in the context of social media, your best bet is to be your authentic self. And if it means that person's not going to follow you or not going to participate in the conversation, I think you're kind of honestly better off. I think casting the net wide that way, actually, I think is a mistake and counterproductive in building a community. But that's just, again, I'm not, my profession is audiobook narrator. And just what I've noticed is the market favors what is rare. And I think that what is rare is who you are and being your authentic self. And that is inherently going to be interesting to other people. And I think staying there rather than making sure everyone is comfortable with your message. I don't know. I think that's maybe more productive.
Yeah, absolutely. You said you hit the nail on the head. Both Prof T and you. First of all, you can't. What is it? You can't lead a horse to water. Some folks you just don't want to be helped, and you cannot help them. So there, there's this thing of some people will always complain about when you're trying to get to the summit, or that why do we have to go up there? It's too far. Why do we have to? Some people you just have to leave at the base of the mountain, and you have to be okay with them being at the base of the mountain. I think sometimes when we get into a quote savior mindset, we're trying to save everybody, and that's not going to work. Um, Also, with what was just said, definitely approaching it's the same thing, approaching them with respect. And you're absolutely right. If people feel like they are their point of view is respected, they're probably more willing to listen to your point of view. And there actually is, and for those of you that are in psychology, you understand this, that people seek out messages that already align with what they believe. They're not looking for their mind to be changed. So if you approach it with this, that most people are already set in what they believe, adults, let's say that, already set in what they believe, and they're not looking for their mind to be changed, it will save you grief in terms of trying to convert people. So keep that in mind. Understand that people come to a conversation or your live stream or your podcast with a particular point of view. And the more open you are, to understanding that they have a particular point of view and respecting that in the way you speak, the more open they are to your point of view. So I just wanted to add that because it followed with the last two speakers, Prof T and Sophie. Thank you both.
Awesome. That was a great ad there, Dr. Tachi. Appreciate it as always. I think one of the things, so April Phrase, Chris's wife and partner in their business, just posted and just clarified a little bit and said, really what they're trying to do is more to provide education to folks about what is going on with their dogs and how they are sort of through their behavior inadvertently sort of creating undesirable behaviors in their dogs, rather than sort of changing minds. And I think that is an important distinction to make, that they're not trying to convince people they're wrong. They're trying to educate people and provide, knowledge resources for people to help them understand how they can have a better relationship with their dog, right? Because ultimately that's the goal, is to have a positive relationship with their dog, and to improve those relationships. And I think, I think that's one of the difficult things, one of the challenging things, is that people do get stuck in their ways. And I think everybody who owns dogs, or not everybody, a lot of people who own dogs think they're experts in dog behavior by virtue of the fact that they bought a dog or adopted a dog, right? And I think that's a tough misconception to overcome for them. So yeah, I mean, but I think it's I think a big part of it is providing those educational resources. And again, I have to kind of agree with what Prof T and Sophie were saying about putting it out there, and if they're ready to hear it, and if they're willing to learn, they will. But like as you just said, Dr. Tachi, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? So that's that's part of it. Is you can provide all the resources you want, but if they're not willing to take a drink, they're not going to learn from you. And you can't change everybody. And I know from conversations I've personally had with Chris, he knows that, right? He knows he's not going to change everybody's mind. He knows he's not going to educate everybody and fix all the problems in the dog world. But he is committed to making a dent. And I know April is as well. So yeah. So anyway, let's move on to David. We got David up here on the stage. David, I don't know if correct me if I'm wrong. I have a terrible memory, so I don't know if we've met. I don't recognize your picture there. So welcome to the stage. Go ahead and introduce yourself, ask a question, drop a tip. Feel free to speak to what we've been talking about. The floor is yours, my friend. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Tom, Doc, Jess, Sophie, Prof T, Julie, Dr. Jennifer, and New, and everyone at the bottom. Hello. Yes, I've been in this space before. I just changed my PTR a lot because I did go whitewater rafting. I love it, so I had to post it. Anyway, I just have a tip. I don't really have. I kind of stray away from sensitive topics, so I kind of stray away from those. But I just have tips of what you could do. So, like last night, I had a room that was like a Uno game night, right? So I said, okay, I'm gonna have people sign up, and so just to make sure that I know who's gonna be part of the sign up, I did like a room prior to the actual date of the room that I had. I said, okay, whoever's really going to play, I need for these people to be signed up. So I signed them up. So by the time that the room actually started, I know exactly who was going to play or whoever's going to do whatever. So I did like a pre-room before the actual room. So it kind of let me know who's really going to be engaged. So that helps me out. So I back channel them and we go back and forth. So pretty much just like a pre-engagement for the engagement. So kind of help them through certain things if they have any questions, concerns, things of that nature. So pretty much just a pre-room before your actual room so that you know who's involved and who's engaged. That's it. David, signing out.
Awesome tip, David. Julie, were you just clapping, or you want to throw something in there?
I'm always clapping for you. Let's be clear there. I'm always clapping for you guys. But, I love that. And the idea of topic of sensitive subjects, how you deal with it when you're teaching or sharing, or your brand is something that maybe not everyone resonates with. What I know to be true is no one likes to be that quote unquote identified patient. No one wants to think there's anything wrong with themselves. So how do you get past them, like just opening their minds and not being that feeling like they're targeted or they're wrong? And I always like this approach in messaging, particularly like when you are talking about something that could help people or open their minds or be the gateway to like change. Start with a big compliment, like, you're doing amazing, you're an amazing dog mom, dog dad, you're trying, everyone's trying their best. And then you sandwich it with like kind of the laser focused message, but you're doing it wrong. Good news is it only takes like 3 days to learn this, so you sandwich it with compliment, kind of like the more criticism, and then end with a compliment. And people seem to resonate with that approach. So that's all I was going to say. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. Yeah, and I think when it comes to, so here's how I deal with sensitive subjects, right? If I want to communicate something that people aren't always comfortable hearing, right? I talked about using analogies before. The other way that I will do that is I will tell a story, a personal story, a story about me, about my life, right? About my experience that highlights me working to overcome either the same issue or a very similar issue, right? Because I don't have stories for everything that I come across, or everything that anybody asks me questions about, or everything that I want to share on, right? But I often have an analogous story from my personal life, and so what I do is I make myself the sort of the case study first, and that I find that tends to put people at ease and make people feel comfortable coming forward then and saying, oh yes, I've struggled with that too, or I've had this problem, or I've worked to overcome that in my life too, that kind of thing. So it just sort of invites people in and says, hey, look, like, I'm not perfect either. I'm not coming to you or coming at you from a place of judgment. I'm saying, look, I have struggled with these things too. Here's how I've overcome them, and I'm trying to help you do the same, or I'm inviting you to sort of explore some of these same things with yourself. So that's something I've done in conversations and when presenting difficult messages. Is I talk about myself a lot, right? And that's like I did the other day with that, or last week with that video, when I asked people to point a camera at themselves and talk about how they feel. Well, what did I do? I pointed a camera at myself and I talked about how I felt being on camera, how it feels for me to be on camera. Right. So I try to do that to kind of invite people to do the same, to share with me the same way I'm sharing with them, kind of that sort of leading by example, I guess. Right. Dr. Tachi, what do you think? Do you have any tricks around that kind of communication?
I co-sign on everything you say, so I'm just going to say absolutely, leading by example. That whole, I know it sounds cliche, but be the change. It's that same thing. You can't expect other people to employ or do if you yourself are not doing. So yeah, turning the camera on yourself, talking about yourself is a great thing, and adding examples of how you were able to do it. And maybe if that was you before, maybe you did some things in dog parenting that were not the best, and talking about how you changed that and how you dealt with that. So maybe other people can see themselves in you. So identifying with that converse point of view or that converse action as someone that used to perform that but changed, and this is what happened as a result of the change, I think that can be very effective. Also, I wanted to, we have another question. There's some people that I have watching over on YouTube and Facebook, like DS and Ron TV Metro and Susan Engels and Dr. Vibe. Hey, Ron TV Metro has a question. I guess he's asking, Ron, and you can clarify this if you want, how you deal with the criticism instead of giving criticism. So maybe I'm thinking he's talking about rather than, well, you could clarify that, Ron, but I'm thinking that he's meaning rather than um, giving out criticism back, how you deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think I don't know. I my reaction to that personally is if I'm going to give, I have to be willing to receive, right? If I'm going to dole out criticism, then I have to be willing to take criticism, right? And so I mean, that's something that I try to do all the time, and it's hard sometimes to do, right? I think it's something that we all, because we want to feel like we're right? Like that's just kind of human nature. We want to feel like we're right. And so sometimes it's really hard to be vulnerable enough to say, I could be wrong here. Feel free, to correct me if I am. And that, that's, like I said, it's something I try to do personally. It's why I said earlier to Prof T, here's what I think. I'm going to push back a little bit, but if I'm wrong, feel free to put me in my place, right? Because we were speaking into her area of expertise, as a clinical psychologist and therapist, right? And that's not me, right? That's not my area of expertise. And so you have to be willing to take criticism if you're going to dole it out. And I think I don't know. I think that's kind of a universal truth, I think, in a lot of ways, and I almost hate that I used that phrase because I'm not a big fan of it, right? Because almost nothing is true universally. But it's one of those things that holds true in most instances, that if you're going to give criticism, you have to be willing to be criticized, right? You have to be open to being criticized. So that's how I handle that, right? I think if I'm going to be critical, I have to accept criticism and just acknowledge that nobody's perfect, and including myself, I'm far from it. And I think that's one of the things that helps me when it comes to creating content and creating content that resonates with people, is sharing the good and the bad, right? Sharing the ups and the downs, and leaving in the little pieces that are imperfect, the little stumbles. It's one of the reasons why I like doing this live stream every week, and why I like being on this Clubhouse room with all of you so much, is that it forces me to be authentic, right? And I actually love being authentic. I love feeling like my most authentic self. It's a good place to be for me. So yeah, so that's how I deal with that. David, did you have something you wanted to add? I just saw your mic flash.
Yes. All right. I guess to speak towards the topic, and my apologies from before, how I deal with if it's a topic to which they may be a little sensitive, depending on the severity of the topic itself. So, say for instance, for me, David, right? My mom passed years ago. All right. So, if we're gonna speak about death, I'd be like, man, well, at least you ain't got to worry about these high ass gas prices. Like I make a joke of it, I make light of it, you know what I mean? Because that helps me get comfortable in the topic. That's just me as a person. I make just a little light and then pretty much kind of ease a person's tension, because we all can make light of certain things. Like, man, your mom used to do what? He's like kind of that's what I do. I just make a light. It's just a small joke to kind of get that person at ease, and it helps me also because that's just naturally how I am as a person. I'm a jovial person. I don't like to kind of be, like, oh my gosh, man, my mom passed away, and I'm so like that's not me as a person. So in order for me to naturally speak to you as a regular person, I have to make light of my situation, and hopefully you can do the same. So then we can all be on the same playing field of, hey, we're happy that person isn't here anymore, but at the same time we have positive or even some whatever memories of these people, and just talk to it like that. So kind of just be positive. But I thought that's the way that I do it. I make a light of it, and I just go from there. So again, depending on the severity of the topic that's being spoken about, but typically I use humor.
It's funny. It's funny. It's interesting that you bring that up, David, because it's Chris in the comments in the chat jumped right on that, because that's one of the things that he does is, in these sort of difficult, tense, especially one-on-one, when he's doing an evaluation with folks that have a dog, he uses humor to sort of disarm and take some of the tension out of the situation, and it works really well for him. And he said, "Oh, I got jokes." And the reason he said that is because not only is he just generally a funny person, but he actually started his career as a stand-up comedian. And dogs and dog training were a passion. And then ultimately, when he and April started their family, he stopped touring as a stand-up and focused on dog training and made that his career. But he is a funny dude, and he does have jokes. I would have loved to have seen him perform and deal with a heckler, because I would bet that he was merciless with a heckler when he was standing on the stage. I'd be willing to bet. But yeah, so yeah, no, appreciate it. Would love to, I guess Dr. Jennifer had to jump. She was going to be up next, but let's go to Laura. Laura, we're talking about dealing with uncomfortable truths, facing criticism, or doling out criticism, constructive criticism, ideally. So feel free to speak to those things or drop a tip, ask a question. The floor is yours. Welcome to the room.
Hey, I hope you guys can hear me okay. My kids just woke up, so I'm hiding from them right now. I am a money coach and debt elimination specialist, and I talk with people about hard subjects all the time. We talk about money, we talk about fear, and that's, it's actually one of the hardest things that people talk about. They'll come to me and they'll tell me all about their marital problems, and then I'm like, great, let's talk about your money, and they're like, no, I don't want to. But what I've found is, for me, when I'm having these hard conversations, I go first. I start with, I was $372,347 in debt. I start with, my marriage was rocky. I start with, these are the things that have happened to me, and that's why I can help you. I always, always, always say, you haven't done anything I haven't done, so don't worry. And I find that that's incredibly disarming to say, here, I'm going to go first. I'm going to let you know. And if they get really uncomfortable, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and they start to get uncomfortable in a situation, have I been in a situation like that? Or have I coached somebody already that's been in a situation like that, where I can say, well, this one time I was talking with this couple and they were fighting about the same thing, and this is how we got over it. Is that something that's interesting to you? I think it's always asking clarifying questions, never assuming what the other person is going through. But if you can start by going first, it's incredibly disarming, and that is my best topic on having those hard conversations. Always go first, because then it opens people up. The same way if you're just having a conversation in a regular, you're out at a dinner party. If you go first and you're like, yeah, I just had a really hard time getting here today. How was your night? They can instantly say, oh my goodness, this person's relatable. This person's not just going to BS me. This person is going to say, it's not, yeah, I'm fine. How are you? It's, I'm an actual person. I've been through actual experiences. And I think to have people come to you and relate with you, you have to be a person first so that they can be a person back. I'm Laura. That's my $1 million thought.
Love that. Thanks, Laura. What do you, Dr. Tachi, what do you think of that approach?
I'm smiling over here. Your last statement that you landed with, you have to be a person first. I love that. Absolutely. I think at the crux of all of this, we have to remember we're dealing with people. Even though it's social media, even though it's podcasting, Clubhouse, all of this, behind all of that is a person, and we have to treat each other accordingly as if we are people. Love everything you said, 100%. I do have another question from the audience if we're game.
Go for it. What do we got?
All right. So DS over on YouTube, hey, asked, what are some of the insecurities a podcaster has to overcome or manage as far as being on camera?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I know what I think my top one is. But I'm curious to let some other folks speak first. So let's go to New Media Talk. Let's throw that question to New Media Talk. We haven't heard from them yet. So what do you think, New Media Talk? What are some insecurities that podcasters have to get over?
Well, can you guys hear me? All right,
We
'cause
gotcha. We gotcha.
Yep.
I'm on my AirPods, and sometimes they don't work. Hey, Dr. Tachi, Tom, and everybody. Um, uh, I was brought to the stage when I first popped in, and I generally just really didn't have anything to say, but I wanted to accept the stage offer because I thought maybe I would. Um, and then I started to develop an idea of something that I wanted to add, but I've been kind of now kind of like, well, which answer this question? And I wasn't really interested in answering that question. I just wanted to kind of,
That's
sit out
all
a little.
good. Share what you want to share. Well, we can jump back to it. Go for it.
Okay, cool. But I just wanted to say that I like the room, and I think that I no longer come into Clubhouse to try to teach people anything because it's very difficult for me. I think I'm really ahead of a lot of people, and I know that sounds I know how that sounds, right, to probably some ears, but I know I am, and in all the techniques to try to get people to understand, it's just what I use Clubhouse and apps like this for now is I learned so much by listening and interacting like now, right? But just listening and really getting more of an understanding and a validation or confirmation of what I already understand about people, right? Especially in these spaces, and it's invaluable. In the Marine Corps, my job was a sniper, right? And to hit a moving target 1,000 meters out, right? You don't shoot to hit the target dead on. You have to put information in, like how fast is that target moving, and you have to aim ahead of it in relation to how fast. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like that for me. I understand things that people just wouldn't understand right now, and for a variety of reasons, they wouldn't listen, they wouldn't comprehend, they would tune out because they're not there yet. And if I and what most people are doing right now is they don't understand that probably maybe a year or two from now they'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember so and so said I should, because and I know this because it's been happening to me since 2000 like 10. I've been like telling people certain things, and then a year later, 2 years later, they'll catch up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, man, if I had just listened." So I used to care that they didn't, but now I understand that some people just, and it's amazing to me how an entire the world, the world, not just America or this room. I would estimate that 90% of the world gets it wrong. And that's something to say, right? Like, who in the world does this guy think he is? But I assure you, because it happens all the time. They start popping in and like, man, I get it now. Yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to add to the conversation that, yeah, you can try to figure out a way to say it so people understand it better or whatever. But at the end of the day, what I'm learning is they don't speak your language. If they don't understand what you understand, there's no language to reach them, in my estimation. So that's all. I just wanted to kind of add that and talk about where I am. That's all. I don't know. So that's all.
Cool. Thanks, New Media. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Dr. Tachi, do you want to jump in to answering that question from your friend over on YouTube there about
Yeah,
overcoming
yeah,
insecurities?
yeah, absolutely. So I think this seems obvious, but the only thing that can overcome insecurity, well, I shouldn't say the only thing is, one thing that can help overcome insecurities with podcasting or being on camera is to consistently do it. You don't grow and change if you do not put yourself in uncomfortable situations. That's where growth comes from, right? That's where change comes from. Going back to the fact when you were a baby and you're teething, that's the most uncomfortable situation in the world. But you don't grow to the point where you can chew and eat wonderful foods unless you go through that, right? That discomfort. So there is discomfort associated with going live, with being on a podcast, starting a podcast, anything that's media where you're putting yourself out there for people to see and subsequently maybe criticize. There is a discomfort with that. Uh, but the way to get over the apprehension is to keep doing it. And you don't have to start with a 1 hour podcast to start. No, start with 5 minutes. You'll be surprised. People are like, what do I have to say for half an hour? And then 45 minutes later, you've got a whole episode. So I would say, start small. Even if it's 3 minutes, write a 3 minute video, a 2 minute video, a 30-second video. Same thing with a podcast. Start with like a 2 or 3 minute podcast episode on something very small, micro teaching, and then keep doing it and keep doing that. And I promise you, you are going to get more familiar and more comfortable with going longer. And guess what happens? When you're live streaming, especially, the same people start to come back in. Because another thing to overcoming that is the fact that you're doing it all the time. So the consistency of it, the more consistent you are, the more people come back because they know to expect you in this place or on this day and time every week or however your frequency is. And then you start to get to know them. And so they're not strangers anymore once that you can call their name, right? So I think hopefully that answers your question, but the frequency and continuing to put yourself in that uncomfortable situation will start to ease the discomfort. It doesn't mean you'll never be nervous about it again, but you'll get more and more used to it.
I think that makes a ton of sense, and I want to just I want to jump in with or actually, David, did you have something you wanted to add real quick, and then I'll.
Yes. When it comes to people's insecurities, when it comes to, I don't podcast, but I do my own little thing. So what I in my life, just outside of this whole clubhouse or whatever else, I tell myself if I'm forcing something, then it's not natural, then I'm not going to do it. Meaning that if you don't have if you don't have like a topic, or if you're not like what's the word I'm looking for? If you're not confident in what you're going to talk about, don't do it. Or just take a few days, because you're not forced to put out that content within that time frame. Because again, you are the master of your domain, so you pretty much put it out when you are comfortable. Don't be pressured about other people's quote unquote successes. Just be like, you know what? I'm gonna take my time when I want to. I'm gonna put out an excellent product on my own time. So don't let everyone else's successes pressure you into giving out maybe bad content or just not as good as you would like for it to be. Space out your content. You don't have to do it every single day, because I know people on Clubhouse, they literally do rooms like every 5 minutes or every day they got a new topic. I'm like, you're flooding the market with garbage. What you gotta do is stop for a moment, think about what you're putting out there, research what you're going to talk about. And then also, because at that time, you're like, you know what, damn, I don't like this topic anymore. Now it gives you time to process everything. Whereas if you just make a topic or whatever you're going to speak, I'm sorry, I'm at the Lifetime Gym in Gaithersburg, Maryland. There's a lot of people in here. But anyway, so the topics, you have to make sure that you well research on what you're going to speak about, space it out, breathe like I need to. So breathe before you do what you do. So don't pressure yourself to just putting out anything. Just don't do like 15 what do they call them, clips or whatever per day. Just chill for a minute. Maybe take 2 weeks off, go on a vacation, live a little, and then go back to that topic or whatever is at hand. But just don't put out everything every single day. Give yourself some time to breathe. That's it, David.
No,
Awesome,
can I
thanks,
just
David. Sorry, who was that jumping in?
yeah, how you doing? I go by John Marshall. I was gonna speak on something David said too. Like I guess that's specific to podcasting and not trying to push something out every day. Um because when it comes to social media, the way the algorithms work now, in order to like really be looked at, you have to be engaging with your social media every day, especially Instagram. Something that we've learned to find out. Like it's why now all of my people in media have been posting, even if it's a bullcrap post, like if it's a video just saying, "Hey, everyone, I see you out there. Got to do this so I can be seen." But like that seems to be like the notion now, especially like these algorithms. You know what I'm saying? You got to be active, you got to be engaging, you got to be liking, you got to be sharing, because the way the system works, they're gonna promote what people are promoting. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you want to constantly, not necessarily, every day be at it, but a good way to look at it is like on weekends, whatever you may be pushing, whatever you may be doing, do it in bulk. It's called batch content. If you do it in bulk and you're able to make a whole bunch of content within 2-3 days, then you're able to layer that content out throughout the couple weeks while you get yourself together. And, just a tip on podcasting, it's a production. Like, I think people negate that. I think people see people put on a camera and get in front of a camera and talk, and they think that's all. No, it's a whole production. Think about it like a TV show. Think about it like somebody who's coming to a radio show. You want to plan that out. Even if you like freestyle talking and you don't like planning out your scripts, plan out your show. Yo, this topic today, I might see what's going on, next week and talk about this. If this happens, for this month, then you know what I'm saying? So it's like those are really important things to like pay attention to. Production is a big part of why people's podcasts are not flying off. You might be a great talker, have great topics. It looks like dog shit. Like, so you know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta look into that.
Can I say something to that real quick? So, like, I
Absolutely,
put in
go
the
ahead.
chat right quick. This is 2 seconds. So I'm not saying you're saying this. So what I'm I guess what I'm trying to say is I personally I don't want to be a slave to the algorithm. Meaning, like, I don't want well, I have to put something out. You know what I mean? I want to be say, I want something to be natural, and it's something that I want to put out. Because if I just put out, hey guys, you know what I'm saying? Like, for me, it's annoying. It's like a commercial. Like, I know when Julie's not here anymore, but when Julie opens a room, when I see Tom opens a room, I go in some room that Jess goes into, I know that it's gonna be quality because they think about what they're gonna talk about. Whereas if they made a room every single day, I'm like, you know what? They're gonna talk about the same stuff every day. It's nothing I'm gonna learn that's gonna be fruitful in my life. I don't really care. I'm that type of person. But if I'm like, all right, I know it's gonna be a dope topic. I know it's gonna be something that's like every other day, whatever, something like that. Then I'm like, you know what? I'm already looking forward to that. But if it's every single day, then it's nothing for me. So I personally, I'm not gonna be a slave to the algorithm. I want to be able to put out what I would like to put out in a timely fashion, like you said, with production. I actually, when I do my rooms on Clubhouse, I actually have somebody doing my voice, like my intros, my resets. I literally have these things recorded like a radio show, because I don't want to be like, hey, my name is David. Come. I don't do that myself. I have somebody else do that, so it sounds a little more professional. It's just me. I'm a regular guy, but I'm saying the algorithm, I understand it is the way that it is of today, but I don't think everyone should follow that. Because why should we all have to follow algorithm? Aren't we all individuals? Do what we need to do to make sure we have a good content. Because at the end of the day, when everything's said and done, I want to be like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to your archives and listen to your content. Let's say 5 years from now, I'm like, damn, that was dope. Interview. There was dope this, dope that, or whatever it is. But I want to be, oh damn, she put out anything because of an algorithm. Forget the algorithm. I am the algorithm. I want to be able to put out what I want to put out when I want to put it out. That's it. Why do you think Dave Chappelle does what he does? He puts it out when he wants to, not when everybody else says, "Hey, you need to do a comedy show every 6 months." He does it. Hey, I got some jokes. I'm gonna do it like this. This is what I'm gonna do. But again, I'm just saying not everybody has to follow the algorithm. I'm just saying that's it. David out.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Dr. Tachi. You want to add something there?
Yeah, really quickly, I have to go with David on this. I do understand the algorithm and the quest to get in front of it, to be behind it, to be beside it, whatever. But let's remember that audiences are smart. After a while, because I'm an audience member, in addition to being a producer and all of that and a content creator, I'm also an audience member. I can't tell you how tired I am of seeing people duet and stitch things together, and your head is just nodding because you're trying to get in front of an algorithm. Now, I am not. Please don't think I'm hating on people that do that. That's okay, but that should not be the meat of what you're putting out there. I would rather see one good video that is of value than 10 pieces of rubbish daily because you're trying to get in front of an algorithm. That's just me. But remember that audiences are smart and we can smell fraud. And I'm not saying that these people are frauds, but we like authenticity when it comes to things, and we can tell when things are just done for algorithmic reasons, if that's a word. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's, I think there's on the algorithm point. I think there's a lot of people engage in a little bit of what I would call a fool's errand, right? And that is trying to crack the algorithm. And I see tons of content put out about here's how you beat the algorithm. Here's all you need to know about every single social media algorithm, right? They all are designed to do one thing in different ways, right? And the one thing they're designed to do is to get you to spend as much time as possible on that particular platform. So Instagram's algorithm is designed to keep you on Instagram. Facebook's algorithm is designed to keep you on Facebook. TikTok's algorithm is designed to keep you on TikTok, right? Because the longer they keep you on the platform, the better their profits are, the more money they make, right? And that's what it is. We are the commodity in that case, right? Our attention is the commodity, and that's what they're vying for. That's all you need to know about social media algorithms is they're all designed to do the same thing, and that is to keep you on the platform you're on. Period, right? They do it in a variety of ways, but that's all they're designed to do. So, that said, I agree with what David was saying, and what you were just saying, Dr. Tachi, that I think it's a bit of a fool's errand to try to beat the algorithm. I think you're much better off creating value-driven, authentic content, right, for your community, right, and putting it out on a consistent basis. And I think consistency is super important there. And the reason why it's important is because it enables you to develop trust with your community. And the way it does that is by being consistent with your content shares, right? With your content posting, by being consistent, what you're doing is you're setting expectations for your community and then living up to those expectations. We say every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, this room is going to be here, right? Every Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, we're going to be here in Clubhouse, podcasting, publishing, and social media, right? Myself, usually it's me and Dom. Dr. Tachi is here like every week. This week she's guest hosting because Dom couldn't be here, right? So, but we're here every Wednesday consistently, right? One of us is here. So consistency is super important to set those expectations and then live up to them. And I'll give you an example of kind of how that helps build trust, right? So when I was a kid, I think I was about 10 years old ish, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't remember exactly how old I was. My parents started leaving me home alone, right? For periods of time where they would, on a weekend or something, they would leave the house for a period of time and I'd be home by myself, right? So at first it was like an hour. And basically what my parents did was they said, all right, we're going to go to the store. We're going to be back in an hour. Here's our expectations, right? Of this time we're gone. We'll see you in an hour. They left. They came back an hour later. I was still alive. I hadn't burned the house down, right? And they said, good job, buddy. Way to live up to our expectations, right? The bar was pretty low. Basically, don't kill yourself, don't burn the house down. That was kind of what the expectations were initially, right? But so I lived up to their expectations. So what did they do? So the next time they felt comfortable leaving me for 2 hours, right? And then 3 hours, and then 4 hours, right? And then a whole day, right? Eventually. And the reason they did that was because they set expectations and I lived up to those expectations, right? And that built trust, right? They trusted they could leave me home for the whole day. And that's exactly what you're doing with your community, with your audience, when you create content and deliver it to them consistently, is you're building trust. You're setting those expectations and then living up to them. And that builds trust, right? So consistency is super important. And yeah, I think, I'll just answer real quick. I just saw DS's question pop up in the chat there that he wants to hear my thoughts on the insecurities question. So I had one. I agree with what Dr. Tachi said about just getting out of your comfort zone, right? And just consistently challenging yourself, putting yourself on camera, recording yourself for a podcast, right? little small steps at a time, right? You got to crawl before you can walk. You got to walk before you can run. So don't feel like you got to hold down an hour-long podcast like on your first day out of the gate. Start small and work your way up. And then the other thing too is just an interesting little bit of science, knowledge, physiology, actually, that'll help people get over, hopefully help people get over a common insecurity when people first put themselves on camera or first start creating audio content. And that is listening to themselves, right? Nobody, no one, no one likes the sound of their own recorded voice, right? And there's a very particular reason why, right? And I hope this explanation actually helps people kind of accept this. So no one likes their voice. It's universal, right? I've recorded my voice, I don't know how many hundreds of times, right? We had a podcast or an audiobook voiceover artist in the room earlier. I'd be willing to bet that if she was still here and I asked her this question, she would say she doesn't like the sound of her own voice, at least initially didn't like the sound of her own voice recorded. And the reason why is because we hear ourselves differently than everyone else does, right? So in my head, I sound a particular way. And that's because sound is vibration, right? And vibration travels through the air, but it also travels through solid materials, right? And our head is made up of solid materials. So when I speak, the vibration created by my vocal cords actually travels through the soft tissue and the bone in my head into my inner ear. So I hear a combination of both my voice that's traveling through the air and being reflected back to my ears and the sound of the vibrations traveling through the tissues and the bones in my head, right into my inner ear. It's the reason why if you plug your ears with both fingers, you can still hear everything you're saying perfectly fine, right? It's because those vibrations are traveling through your head. So what happens is when we speak into a microphone or we record ourselves, that's how everybody else hears us. So actually what you're hearing is what everybody else always hears and what you sound like to everybody else, right? So it's you only sound different to yourself. You don't sound bad to anybody else. You just sound different to yourself. And so you think like, oh, it didn't sound good. It was a bad recording. It was whatever. No, your voice just sounds different to everyone else than it sounds to yourself. And it's because of how our ears work, right? So when you record yourself, know that you are going to sound different to how you sound in your head, right? And accept that unless people come up to you and tell you, dude, like, I can't stand the sound of your voice. It's like nails on a chalkboard, right? Odds are everybody else thinks you sound fine, right? So you are always going to be your own worst critic because you sound different to yourself than you do to anyone else. So just bear that in mind when you're trying to get over that hump of insecurity of how you sound on video or on a podcast. Odds are that you don't like the way you sound, but to everybody else, it's totally okay. You sound great, right? So just know that going in, you're not going to like it, and be open to that, be accepting of that. And hopefully that little bit of knowledge helps some folks get over that. So I want to move on here. I feel like I just talked for 20 minutes. So I want to move on here. I want to jump to Dominick, who's up on the stage. Dominick, welcome back to the room. Ask a question, share a tip. The floor is yours, my friend. What do you got going on?
Got a lot going on, but thank you so much for having me, Tom. Dr. Tachi, is always a pleasure. To everybody in the room holding space, I really appreciate everybody on stage and in the audience. I'll just say this, just kind of add a tip, kind of in the ongoing conversation of algorithms and being consistent. I think it's important to remember to start where you are, do what you can, and just go from there. I think a lot of times we hear a lot of advice, and none of the advice I've heard today is bad advice. It really isn't, but it does come from our own experiences and our own, uh, value thinking and stuff like that. And I think multiple people start podcasts, go on Clubhouse, start YouTube channels for various different reasons. I guess I just wanted to remind the audience and anybody who listens on replay that take what you need from the advice that you hear, and throw away the bones. If it doesn't apply to you, then just don't use that part. But there's a lot of great advice here. I just want to make sure I highlight that. But I think at the end of the day, you know why you're creating the content you're creating. And if you are trying to build a following, then you know that you have to know what the algorithm is or pay attention to what that is. If it's not to build a following, then that part of the conversation may not apply to you. So I just wanted to highlight that part.
I love that, Dominic. Thanks for highlighting that. And 100% agree. I think there's often that tendency that people fall into if a part or a piece or a section of advice that someone gives doesn't apply to them, then they throw out everything, right? And I think that's great advice to take the pieces that apply to you, take the pieces that you can derive value from, that you can grow from, and feel free to leave the rest on the table if it doesn't interest you, right? It's like when you go to I like the food analogy, Dominic, you used, throw the bones away, right? It's like if you go to a buffet, you don't have to eat everything at the buffet. Just take some of what you like and leave the rest there for other people, right?
Hey Tom.
So
Hey,
Absolutely.
so I got a quick question because I've read and this is I'm really looking for the answer for this because that would be great. So to beat the algorithm, just really, I guess you guys are saying, just be authentic and do your own thing. Is that it? Because that sounds good.
I have a question for you though.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think, look, I don't know about using that to beat the algorithm, but I think that's a better way to approach content creation than just trying to beat the algorithm, right? I think if you approach content creation from with passion, right? If your subject material is something you're passionate about, and with the idea of creating, delivering value for your community, right? And I like to use the word community instead of audience or followers, right? Or following. If you, I think if you come from that place when it comes to creating content, whether it's on social media, in the digital space, I think that's a great place to be. And I think the community that you want to build will eventually come around that if you deliver that content consistently, with passion and with the notion of delivering value to them. So kind of my point was, I don't really care about the algorithm. I know what the algorithm is designed to do. And there's no point. You could drive yourself nuts trying to derive exactly what the algorithm is doing and how it's ranking things. But they change the algorithms all the time. They're not public. Like, it's that's why I think it's a bit of a fool's errand. So I think you're better off just being authentic, creating quality content that you're passionate about, that delivers value to your community, and leave it at that. That's what I think is just a better way to approach the issue, if that makes
Gotcha.
sense.
Thanks, man. No, I like it. Thanks. I appreciate you.
But and not to.
Just to, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, no, I was just saying. Like while I think that's notable, like what he's stating, because that's always my mindset. I come from a neighborhood that don't have a lot of role models, so we had to learn how to do it ourselves. That's why we stepped out and we made a team of people that puts on open mics, that goes back into the neighborhoods and work with kids, that tries to be a part of the education system and coach and teach and different things of that accord. But it's like everybody is not focused on that. Like I'd be a fool if I think like all the kids that I'm mentoring want to repeat what I'm doing. Some people just want to entertain. Some people just want to be big or just want to be a name. I'm not, not to, if I look around this room and I see new media, like he might want to be the Instagram group that keeps his people retained to Instagram, like keeping his retention rates on Instagram because that's how he promotes or push whatever he has going on. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I hear what you're saying, but most people are not on that positive push message, like with trying to build a community. Or most people just want fans, want attention, want the influence, so they can use that influence to push whatever else they want to push or earn whatever money they want to try to earn and things like that. So that's why you have like that separation of like And somebody said it in here, like you take pieces that apply to you, and you use that and you go forward. It's not to say like well, there's a lot of different artists. That's why we hit the socials all day, every day. But it's worked for us. It's got us engagement. It's got us people, who are paying attention. People who share after they see somebody else share, and they're like, oh, okay, that person's messing with it, so I'm gonna like it now. Let me pay attention or listen to it now. Different things of that accord. Like the way we did that, we just had a base team of people who shared and cared. We know we had a base fan base who share and care when we do. So we just let that have a trickle down effect, and we attack it anytime we have new content. But like again, to speak to the opposite side of that, some people truly are not out here trying to build a community. They're just trying to become popular and make their way to the top, or make their way to some influential control.
And to your point, we see why. This is the first time in the history of media where the average person has had access to a platform that can reach billions, and you don't have to beg NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, any of these networks to put you on because you have a platform. Now, it's not as easy to get the reach when you have as a large distributor behind you, but the point is that this is the first time, and this is why everybody, I think, is excited about it. So I see where that comes from. I will say one other thing about the algorithm. If you are a social media manager or a strategist and you are working for somebody else, yes, pay attention to the algorithm. And I'm not saying don't pay attention to for your own content, but if somebody is paying you to do this, they're going to expect results. So I think that would be the only exception. Tom?
Yeah,
I
no,
got you.
agreed.
Thank you for that.
Agreed there. Agreed there. And I think, John, I think what I'm sort of getting at with my messaging and my approach, right? That's sort of positive about, building a community is I think that is a more sustainable way and a better way for individuals, right? Now that we all have a platform because of the democratization of media, right? Through social media, through digital platforms, right? We all have access now. I think it's a better way to build a business is by building community, right? Rather than trying to follow the model of big businesses, right? And the model that we've seen through traditional media, which is to advertise and try to extract capital from the consumers of that content, right? I don't think that is a good business model, generally speaking, and I don't think it's sustainable for individuals, right? So I think that's why a lot of individuals find themselves or feel like they're banging their head against the wall, like I'm doing all the things that I feel like I'm supposed to do and I'm not making any money on my digital media platforms. Why not? And the problem is because they're not actually building a community. They're trying to treat people like dollars and cents, right? Or data points on a spreadsheet rather than treating people like people, right? So I think building a community is about treating people like people and creating a sustainable growth for your business, your brand, whatever the case may be, rather than just trying to extract capital from your audience, right? I don't think that's a sustainable long-term approach, especially on the individual level. So I hope that makes sense. Next up in my feed, I think we got to meet Matt. Matt, we haven't heard from you yet. So Matt, why don't you, the floor is yours. Share a tip, ask a question. Welcome to the stage, my friend. Matt, do we have a Matt? Can Matt hear us? Are you there, Matt?
We may have to move past
We
Matt.
may have to move on, so maybe we'll come back to Matt. Let's go to Jamal. Jamal is the only other person on stage we haven't heard from. So Jamal, why don't you go ahead and ask a question, share a tip? The floor is yours, my friend.
Appreciate that, man. I was sitting here listening. I actually do radio on the air right now in Fort Wayne, Indiana. You can check out my profile. But I'm just sitting here listening, man. I also have a podcast as well. that I do. And my first guest on my podcast, for those who may be familiar with Tom Joyner, it was actually his co-host, Sybil Wilkes. Had a great time on the podcast. So I'm trying to get more into podcasting and using my social media to push out my information. But this whole conversation about the algorithm, man, I've been enjoying that. It's good to know that I'm not the only one who is battling that and fighting the algorithm on a daily basis. I find myself sometimes even posting some information to my social media and deleting it if I don't see anyone interacting with it. I'm like, man, come on. So I'll delete it and repost it, thinking maybe I posted it at the wrong time of day or something like that. But, just I'm enjoying the entire conversation. So if I can be any help to anyone, as far as podcasting, I just published my brand new book as well. So you guys can support me with that as well. That was something brand new for me to do as well. One of my friends, he's an author. He kind of guided me a little bit. But for the most part, I was able to navigate that entire process on my own. So I'm enjoying the conversation. Here to learn. I'm here to connect and collaborate with new people. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I appreciate that.
Hey, I want to jump in here and say that over the last 2 years, and it's been longer, but over the last 2 years, it seems like more and more of the mainstream people have been recognizing I'm doing air quotes, algorithm and the problem or problems with the algorithm. And it's been a problem since the onset. But after a while, people start to understand, hey, this algorithm thing is getting in my way. And there's a definite way to beat the algorithm, because it is. And probably in 2 years or 3, people understand. There are people who know, but it's out there. But we talked about this earlier. Um, it's just you got to find a way to speak to people so that they, like one of the guys said, I think his name is David, tell some jokes, make it easier for people to accept and all this other stuff. But I think that at the end of the day, people just they don't want to hear what they don't want to hear. But in a couple of years, everybody will learn how to beat the algorithm and do really well. Or the way tech moves so quickly, they'll have missed the boat. So there's a way to beat it. Pretty simple, but it requires some work. Simple, but it requires some work.
Can I?
That's all.
I didn't want to make this about the algorithm. Like that wasn't my reason of bringing this up. Like I don't like people spoken here. Like I'm gonna double back on what they're saying, because the algorithm, yes, there's scientific ways of approaching it to stand a third, whatever. But like someone said, it's being genuine. Clubhouse is not. Doctor said Clubhouse is the first time regular people got a platform to that they can control, that they can. It's not the first time for me. I'm a gamer. I've been a gamer since I was 6 years old. I've been an online gamer since I was 12. Had a Dreamcast. So I've always seen the internet and the evolution of where media on the internet was going, being so heavily into computers. I've seen when Twitch gaming was at its baby form on Ustream TV, when people had a bunch of wires and gadgets to hook up they game to their computer so that they can stream online. I saw when that started, the birth of that. When Ustream became Justin TV, and then Justin TV became Twitch TV, into what's now the powerhouse that's paying all these people in their platforms. So it's like I've seen regular people turn into these superstars, and they've done that by, like y'all said, being themselves. But I think what people are forgetting is the patience part. Like, it takes time. I've seen, like, people who used to stream, consistently. I'm not going to say every day, because that's what I meant, consistently. Stream consistently, and they go from 4 or 5 people for 3 months, 12 people for another year. And then out of nowhere, in 2 years, they've blown up. Now they have 150 people, 600 people. You know why? Because over those span of years, they created that trust. Somebody who saw them 2 months ago came back like, let me check on Twitter. Hey, this guy's still coming up here at 8 o'clock doing his thing. Let me see what he on now. And this is how people start to engage and get attached to you. But it takes time. If people want an instant gratification, it's not going to happen overnight. even over a year if you're not lucky. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you got to be just consistent, be genuine, and understand your audience and what you're trying to captivate with your audience.
Is that new? Is that a new thing, or have Tom Joyner? Because somebody brought Tom Joyner up with his co-host, or have Tom Joyner and every other morning show host been consistently being on every day at a certain time, Monday through Friday. So it's not a new concept. I think you're right, but that's my point. It's like you're saying something that's been going on for years that people have known about for since the 20s and 30s. So I think when we pluck those things out of history and we implement them here, it works. So I'm agreeing with you. That's all. Just wanted to kind of say that. That's all.
I,
Thanks.
I have one question before I leave. So
Go
the
for it.
questions, real quick, Tommy. So the question I have to anyone that's making content across the board: what's more important to you, the content you put out, or the algorithm? So once you figure that out, then you be good. You'll be good. Let me put it in proper English. Then you'll be in a better light. So if you're concentrating on algorithm, so now you're formulating what you would love to do, which is talk. Let's say talk about what a specific topic. Now you're gonna formulate that type of topic to the algorithm, not what you are passionate about. So me personally, I used to do pest control. I made a room on the Clubhouse on pest control. I did that for 3.5 years. I literally just made it and say, hey, if y'all need any help, boom, boom, boom. I just made the group. I didn't see anybody talking about it, so I just made it. You know what I'm saying? I made a group about online scam literacy. I don't see nobody talking about it, so I just made it. And I got people in there. I got a game room last night. I gave out $250. I just made it. So I'm not chasing because if I want to, like low hanging fruit in particular, I don't have an Instagram, but if I want to, or even on Clubhouse, I can make a group based on drama and whatever. That's not my lane. So what you have to do is anybody who's listening to my voice right now, get in your own lane, be good at it, and people will come. As that baseball thing, as you make it, they will come. That's how it got to be. You just got to be passionate and wait for the people to come. If they don't come, hey, so be it. At the end of the day, it's about integrity. Stay with your own path. If people don't flock to what you're doing, then it's just people just don't flock. It is what it is. But be passionate about what you are doing, and people will come. I'm sorry to be so passionate about what I'm talking about right now, but this is how I speak when I'm getting very passionate. But just stick to your guns, and people will come. That's it. Forget about
So
the
who in
I,
here?
algorithm.
I
Who in
love it,
here?
David. Sorry, I'm gonna jump in real quick. I love it, David. I think you're 100% right about following passion. Right. I think passion should be the driving force. People ask me all the time, how do you come up with ideas, or what should I talk about? How do I think about what kind of content I should talk about? And one of the things I say is, one of the things I tell people is, if you're struggling to come up with topics that you want to talk about in your content, right, or things you want to cover, what I suggest people to do is start thinking about the things that they're excited to tell people, right? Think about the stories, the experiences, the things you're excited to share with people at the end of the day, right? What the things that you go home at the end of the day and you're excited to tell your significant other about, right? Or your friends or your family about, right? Those things that you're most passionate about, that you find most interesting, that you find most exciting, are good places to look to start creating content and to start coming up with topics for your content. So I always tell people, follow passion, right? And the rest will come, but passion has to be first. And I think it's really what it is that passion, because it's something you are genuinely passionate about, you can't help but be authentic to yourself in your conveyance of that passion through your media, whether it's podcasting or video content or social, any text posts on social media, blog posts, whatever the case may be, right? If you are passionate about it, that passion will come through, right? Passion is contagious. And yeah, so I think if you're following your passion, you're being authentic. And if you are to what you were saying, and I know new media, and I'm not this has nothing to do with what you were saying. I know you kind of it came across like you were saying you almost regret saying the word algorithm because it kind of spurred this whole tangent. But I think if you're focused on trying to crack the algorithm, just in the same way in traditional media, it's like you can swap ratings or audience size or listeners, etc. For algorithm with traditional media. It's the same quest. If you're trying to create content that is only designed to garner a following, right? Whether it's on social media and you're trying to crack the algorithm, or it's in more traditional media and you're trying to get better ratings and trying to reach more households and get more listeners, or whatever the case may be, then you're not creating authentic content, and it's going to feel flat and manufactured and fake, right? And if you are if you follow passion, it's going to feel authentic and real and relatable, right? And those are the things that authentic and real and relatable are the things that in the long term will grow a community that is self-supporting around your content, right? So if you focus on your passion and use that as a driving force, it will carry you forward, right? That's kind of my thought on it. I want to, before we go too much longer, because we're getting close to the end of the room here. I want to jump to Scott real quick, give Scott a chance to introduce himself, ask a question, share a tip. Scott, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Jamal, I hear you're from Fort Wayne. I'm from Warsaw, Indiana, so we're pretty close, maybe close enough to collaborate. I've never spoken on your radio show before, but I've spoken on Tom Dukes, if you know him, down in Angola, Sturgis, Michigan area. Uh, so my name is Scott Clay. I am a local politician in Warsaw, Indiana, Kosciuszko County. And I ran for county council at the age of 24 years old. And nobody really known about me, but I spent about a year and a half to 2 years building up my name recognition before I ran. When I ran, I was challenging somebody who had been involved in the community for over 30 years, and I received over 40% of the vote. It was a close call. I almost won, and now I'm just kind of sticking with it, and I'll be running for office again in the future. With that being said, there's other various things that I do. I'm a community ambassador, for the chamber. I attend all the new business cuttings and go to all after events and 1 and 3 times a week. I've got a lot of earned media. I've been heard on the radio several times. Different little shows that I kind of go on and talk, and all earned media. I haven't paid for a whole lot of this media, but anyways. So with all of that being said, now in my politics, I'm very well connected throughout Indiana. So I know the governor, lieutenant governor. I know governors of other states who come and visit with us. Several congressmen, several representatives. And, so just the other day, what happened to me was I was on Facebook and Instagram, and something popped up that said that my account was now being monetized. And so all of my community involvement with nonprofits and, politics and, just the community in whole has always been something that I do either out of my own pocket or unpaid, right? Because for running for office, you spend a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars running for office. But this is the first opportunity that I have had to be paid, from being involved on social media. And so now, I get on social media, and yesterday I posted a photo of me and my niece just because my page is for friends and family, and I'm starting to get monetized and money starts coming in from, every time that I post on social media, I'm starting to get paid from this. And it's not a lot of money, but if I focused on it, maybe it could be. And so, one of the things that I'm looking at is, I know these famous politicians, and I personally know the owners of pretty much every business in the county that goes through the Chamber of Commerce, because I shake their hand and attend their, grand opening ceremony every time. I don't miss those. But, is it a good time for me to start a podcast? I could maybe meet with someone like Jim Banks. I know Jamal's from Indiana, so he might know that name better than others. But for example, about 6 or 7 months ago, I met Governor Chris Christie, who ran for president. It was in all the presidential debates. But these are the people that I have access to. And if I could, start to build a podcast, or write a book, or, I suppose writing a book would come much, much later. As I just got monetized, I've only got about 1,100 followers, but I do own a large group with 4,000 members here, and I own another large group with 2,000 members there, right? But as far as my personal page being monetized, I've only got my 1,100 followers. And a lot of those people are community, um, politics, and nonprofit. So that kind of gives you guys an idea of my situation. There's a lot more that goes to it, but that's just kind of the quick overview of where I'm at, what I'm thinking. So what's your guys' advice on, should I start a podcast now that I'm being monetized and already being paid? Who should I look to feature on my podcast? And what kind of ways do you incentivize people to come onto your podcast, especially when you don't have a large following? Um, you know, Anyways, I'll give you guys a chance to kind of answer that, and I really appreciate it in advance. Thank you.
I'm gonna give a kind of a binary answer, which is slightly uncharacteristic for me, but I think it applies in this case. It's a simple yes or no, like kind of either or question, right? It's not a yes or no, but it's an either or question, right? So if I think the question you have to ask yourself is why, right? So if you want to create a podcast, the question is why, right? What is the end goal? And if the answer to that question is to raise my profile and make money, then my response is no, don't do it. Don't start it, right? If the answer to that question is because I believe I can bring value to a community, right? Because I believe that I can help people and provide information and be a conduit for other people to share their knowledge and information with the community, and that everyone will benefit from it, then I would say go ahead. But if it's a simple question of, should I start a podcast because I think I might have a chance of making money or raising my personal profile doing it, then my answer would be no. It's the wrong reason to do it, and it's probably ultimately not going to be successful. So hopefully that helps. Dr. Tachi, what do you think?
I co-sign right along with you. Absolutely. Money cannot be the driving factor in this. Not that it's not a factor, but it can't be the driving factor. I think what you need to do is also refine exactly, in addition to your goals, what it is that you want to speak about. So I think it's become a buzzword to have a podcast, to have a live stream, or to write a book. But like you said, why? What particularly do you want to talk about? And that will also help drive who you bring on your podcast as well. So we could be here sitting here assuming that it's probably going to be some sort of political podcast. But what end of it? Is it highlighting political figures? Is it highlighting policy, etc.? Is it hyper local where you're talking about your area? So I think you have to know your why, but then also what you want to talk about, right? Tandem in conjunction. Think about those two things, and that will help you discover, well, maybe a live stream would be better, maybe a podcast would be better, maybe a book would be better, or maybe all three would work. That's just on its surface.
And I think, and I agree with that. I think the sort of the key thing there when you're talking about what you want to talk about, when you're thinking about what you want to talk about on a podcast or on a show or a piece of content, I think it's incredibly important to remember that you are there to serve the audience, right? You are there to serve the community that the content is for, right? It's about them. It's not about you, right? You are a conduit. It's like delivering a presentation or a speech, right? Like I've been I've been fortunate enough that I've been hired to and paid to speak at events, and been asked to speak at different events for different kinds of organizations over the years. And one of the things that you always keep in mind when you go to speak in front of an audience is that it's about the audience. It's not about you, right? The goal of my presentation, the goal of this room, the goal of everything that I create is to provide value beyond myself, right? In some cases, I seek to provide value for myself as well, right? And that's true in the vlog that I do every day right now as I'm training for my Ironman race. Part of that is about creating accountability for myself. But the end goal is, and my hope is, and the simple truth is, I've been told this, that it's created value for other people, that it's helped other people face challenges, get out and exercise more, face things that they were, intimidated by. In fact, Dominick has started doing more swimming, and it's something that, like, he's super comfortable splashing around in a pool, but he doesn't go out and swim very much. And I gave him some tips one day, kind of offline before we started this live room, and he has told me that he's been following up on that. He's been doing some of the things, and it all came about because of my sharing my journey as I train for my next Ironman. So ultimately, it always has to be about the audience first and what value you're creating for the audience. It has to be about them. It can't be about you. If it's about you and raising your personal profile and fundraising or generating revenue for yourself, then I think you're better off to steer clear and not do it, because it's not going to be successful, I don't believe. So yeah, I think we're getting real close to the end. If we want to just answer that one question from DS, Dr. Tachi, if you want to tackle that real quick that DS posted in the chat, and then I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the room for this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has been fantastic. DS, that is a great question. As we said, I think if your main goal is to become a millionaire and to be swimming in swimming pools of money, the podcast is not the way to do it. Not that, again, that they cannot be a goal to monetize, but I think sometimes people get into podcasting with the goal that, oh, it's going to make me so much money. For some, it may. I'm going to probably say for the masses, it will not, but you can definitely have an impact. If you think you cannot be committed to a regular schedule of creating content, it's also not for you. Because I think even more than with other types of media, with a podcast, there needs to be a level of consistency, especially if you are intending to monetize and get at mid-roll, pre-roll, and post-roll ads and that. I think that you have to have a level of consistency, because that's also going to build your community. The more you're on, the more they are going to listen to you. And then consistency, the uploading your podcast at the same time every week, if it's an upload deal, if it's something that you do live, doing it at the same time every week or every day, however often you do it. But if you can't be consistent and can't commit to a schedule of doing it, then I would say think before you do it. Also, one thing to think about is, can you do this by yourself? Guests cancel all the time. Sometimes your co-host may get sick, and the show still has to go on. If you can't do it by yourself, or you're not comfortable doing it by yourself, or you don't have access to a network where you can pull in a guest host, then that's something to think about as well. I'm not going to say don't do it, but think long and hard before you embark. Tom?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think creating a podcast is an endeavor in production that requires consistency over time, right? And if you can't maintain that consistency, if you don't have a good plan for how to maintain a consistent thread, a consistent feed for your podcast over time, then then probably not a good way to do it. And then the other thing too is if you are thinking about starting a podcast, put some thought into what that format is going to be, right? There are lots of ways to make a podcast. It doesn't have to be an interview show, right? It doesn't have to be scripted. It doesn't have to be, but it can be, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? It can be true stories. It can be a fictional podcast. It can be true crime. It can be all kinds of things. So have a good plan for what your podcast is going to be, and plan your episodes out in advance, right? And if you're not the kind of person who is comfortable doing that, who is willing to spend the time in advance to plan out episodes and to commit to creating that consistent thread, that consistent feed for your podcast, it's probably not right for you. So hopefully that helps answer your question, DS. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tachi real quick for some closing thoughts, and then I'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll call it a Wednesday. How's that sound to you, Dr. Tachi?
It sounds amazing. First of all, I have to say thank you to you, Tom, and to Dom for having me guest host today. It is not lost on me that you asked me to do this. It is such an honor, and then an honor to be able to share this wonderful show out on my channels. Thank you for the opportunity to do that. Just to let you know, today I am celebrating 7 years of Mediascope, so this was a wonderful way to ring in 7 years of doing that. So thank you for being the start of my Mediascope celebration.
It's my pleasure. First of all, congratulations. 7 years is no small accomplishment. It is a serious feat to have a show go for 7 years. So yeah, congratulations. Thank you for agreeing to co-host with me today, for being a guest host for Dominick and I. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you being here every week. You showing up, you always contributing to the space and helping answer questions and being so giving with your time and your knowledge and your expertise. It is very much appreciated. And it's because you are so giving and kind and authentic with your presence here in this space. That's why we invited you. You know, why I asked you to be a co-host with me here today is because of how you've brought it in this space time and time again. So can't thank you enough for your contributions here. Really appreciate it. And I just want to go. Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to leave with this. This is kind of how I want to wrap it up today. Dominick unfortunately left before I got this. I was gonna say this in front of him, but Dominick Lawson posted this in the chat. And he said, why obsessed? We were talking about the algorithm earlier, and he said, why obsessed with something we can't control and that changes at the snap of a finger? And I think that's a great point to make. And it made me think of two things, really. One that we started the room talking about, which was embracing being uncomfortable and getting out of your comfort zone, right? And getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And to bring it back to a question that spurred a lot of conversation earlier on from my friend Chris Fraze, one thing he likes to say to people all the time is embrace the suck, right? So I just want to encourage everybody to embrace the suck, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And then at the end of the day, focus on controlling the controllables and be willing to let go the things you cannot control, right? We cannot control the algorithm. We are not in charge of it. We cannot overcome it, right? What we can do is we can control how we present ourselves to the community, how we present ourselves to the world, and what we use our platform to accomplish. And that's where I think we should focus. And that's why I try to focus all the time, every day, in everything that I do to try to bring as much value as I can and to lead with value. And that's what I hope we've done here today. So thank you again, Dr. Tachi, for being my co-host today. I very much appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody who tuned in on the live stream. Thank you for coming and for listening and for participating and for asking questions. And thank you to everybody who is here in the room. Really appreciate you guys always. Every day. I hold this room dear. I love being here every week because of the community that we've created here. So thank you all so much. Much appreciated. We're going to go ahead and close out the room now. I hope everybody has a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a great week.